Hey guys, this is the Colin O'Reilly Show. Welcome back. This week I'm going to be talking about quantum computers and a recent breakthrough Google has made in the quantum computing field with their creation of an incredible new quantum microchip known as Willow. And again, to close us out this week, the East Coast UFO flap that just won't quit, the great mystery drones of New Jersey. We do know that both Bruce Willis and Bruce Springsteen were born there, so makes total sense that aliens would want to check it out, and we'll get into it. By the end of this episode, you'll be a quantum computer and paranormal news expert. And the next time someone asks you what you've heard about recent technology and or UFO news, you can reply everything. People will look up to you. Okay, let's do this. First up, quantum computing and Google's incredible achievement with their latest and greatest microchip known as Willow. As a longtime super nerd, I've been following quantum computing news since the late 90s, when the field seemed to be forever lost, banished to a hopeless realm of science fiction like time travel or warp drives, forever out of reach of current technology. And just in case you aren't as obsessed with the idea of quantum computing as I am, I'm going to explain exactly what quantum computing is and how it works by turning the clock back almost 300 years to an old experiment that revealed a mechanism of the universe that remains shrouded in mystery to this day. This physics exercise is known as the dual nature of light and is founded upon an experiment known as the double slit experiment. The unsolved mystery of the double slit experiment seems to hint at a fundamental aspect of reality that humans just don't understand yet, and it is still a mystifying demonstration of the inherent weirdness of quantum mechanics. Imagine you're at a lake and you're tossing pebbles into the water, creating ripples. These ripples spread out and interfere with each other, creating a pattern of high and low points, an interference pattern. Now think of light as behaving both like the pebble and the ripples in the water. The double slit experiment was first conducted by Thomas Young back in 1801. It involves using a source like a flashlight, or he used a candle back then to focus a beam of light through two parallel slits that have been cut into a piece of paper, and then that piece of paper is placed in front of a larger projector screen or sometimes a piece of film. It's just a very simple experiment, 3 steps: light source, piece of paper with 2 little rectangular slits cut into it, and then behind that, to catch the light, a larger projector type screen or piece of film. And then when the light, or photons are what particles of light are called, when the photons pass through those slits that are cut into that first piece of paper, the light filters through those slits and hits the screen behind it and creates what's known as an interference pattern. And it looks just like the ripples of water as described earlier from the lake, as if someone had just tossed a pebble into a lake of light. You just have bands of exposure crisscrossing the screen. This crisscross pattern or ripple effect suggested to Young that light acts as a wave. The ripple pattern gives the impression that the photons have bounced around, taken every possible course that they could before making their way through those slits on the paper and onto the screen behind it. But here's where things get really strange. Young found that light behaves as a wave only if nobody is observing the light, meaning when he tried to detect which slit in the screening paper the photons actually pass through, the interference pattern disappeared. Instead, when he watched the light being shown instead of ignoring it, the photons behaved as distinct physical particles, not waves. They acted more as like the pebble from the earlier analogy of the lake again. Instead of the interference pattern appearing on the projector screen, there now appeared two distinct solid dark bands directly aligning with the slits in the piece of paper that had been placed in front of it. It was as if the light was now streaming straight through those pre-cut slits as narrow beams without any of the bouncing or resulting interference pattern that had been previously recorded. This strange phenomenon came to be known as the dual nature of light. Light was shown to behave as both a wave and a particle, and eventually these waves became known as probability waves, and one of the fundamental principles and central mysteries of quantum mechanics. And now let's add another layer of mystery with the concept of quantum decoherence. In quantum mechanics, particles of light, aka photons, can exist in multiple states simultaneously. This is known as a superposition. However, in the real world, we can never see these superpositions. They seem to collapse like an ocean wave into a single state when they are observed, just as the photons in Dr. Young's double slit experiment from before. This collapse of a wave into a particle became known as decoherence. Quantum decoherence happens when a probability wave interacts with its surrounding environment or reality. This interaction or observation causes the wave to lose its structure or coherence, and it collapses or decoheres into a physical particle. Here's a crazy example I came up with today. Quantum decoherence is like having an unmixed smoothie in an unmarked, opaque blender. You can't tell what's in the blender from the outside. You have no idea what the ingredients are. It's just pure smoothie potential. But as soon as you open the blender to take a look, as soon as the information or ingredients are observed, the ingredients all collapse into each other, and the smoothie becomes a strawberry or banana or one particular flavor. Just as a wave, when it is observed, decoheres or collapses into a particle. Fun fact, nobody has any clue as to how or why decoherence actually occurs. Nobody really knows why reality seems to need an observer to function, but it is a fascinating mystery, and one that computer scientists began to use in thought experiments just a few short decades ago. Understanding decoherence became crucial for the development of quantum computers. Unlike classical devices that use a binary system of zeros and ones to process information, quantum computers use qubits, which can exist in a superposition of those states. Instead of existing or being represented as just a 0 or a 1, a qubit applying superposition states can exist as both a 0 and a 1 at the same time. A qubit's superpositions allow quantum computers to perform complex calculations much faster than classical computers, and to even quickly solve problems that are currently unsolvable by supercomputers. Quantum computing will revolutionize the fields of AI, physics, material sciences, drug discoveries by solving complex problems in just seconds, what would take current supercomputers millions of years to complete. While the double slit experiment revealed the wave-particle duality of light, quantum physicists then miraculously figured out a way to leverage that physical principle underpinning all of our reality is a novel way to compute information in ways that were once thought impossible. Since ancient times, philosophers have toyed mentally with the concepts of algorithms, the rules of logic. The earliest concepts of binary computing can be traced back to our earliest ancient civilizations and societies. We can see there the roots of computers taking shape in humans' earliest days. Those early thought experiments that were used to probe what might be possible using simple binary computations like those of the infamous ones and zeros, or yes and no options to cumulatively perform complex tasks, lead us directly to the 19th century and Charles Babbage, who first proposed the analytical engine, a mechanical general-purpose computer, and Ada Lovelace, who wrote the first algorithm intended for it, making her the first computer programmer. And which brings us now to 2024. Apple, Google, Microsoft, Instagram, computers and the software that run on them is based on those same types of binary algorithms and logic principles devised by those philosophers so long ago. Those very same yes-no decision trees and logical rules of operation are still used today as the physical and intellectual architecture that would eventually come to operate all of our iPhones and iPads, and is known as the binary code. The binary computer operating structure is represented numerically in those ones and zeros like we see in all the computer hacking movies and the Matrix. They're all green and raining down on the screen, just zeros and ones. That those binary operations are what our entire modern computerized civilization have been based on for about 100 years now. But now there's a new computer architecture on the block. There's a new system. Flashback to 1801 and Thomas Young with his candlelight experiment, which unveiled a brand new physical process to the world, that quantum decoherence, that duality of the wave and the particle, and the collapse or decoherence of that wave. The first ideas of using that physical process, that collapse of the wave or quantum decoherence, for a new type of physical computing began to take shape in the late 1970s and early 1980s. During this period, researchers like Paul Benioff and Richard Feynman started exploring the potential of quantum mechanics for physical computing processes. Unlike today's modern devices that use binary bits of information to process tasks, quantum computers use what are known as qubits, which can exist in a superposition of states and gives them exponentially more computing power than traditional binary computer bits. Instead of just a binary position of a 0 or a 1 or a transistor, electron gate being open or closed, a qubit's ability to maintain a superposition means that it can be a 0 and a 1 at the same time. This is because quantum computers are able to shield qubits from being observed by the outside universe. The qubits are stored as probability waves before they can decohere into physical particles. This is done by shielding the qubits in a series of magnetic fields, though there are several competing quantum architectures currently vying for supremacy in the field. Managing qubits can be obviously a very difficult engineering challenge. Due to such extreme engineering complexities, many physicists thought that building a workable quantum computer would take many, many decades if it could ever be done. Well, cut to last week, and in walks Google, who unveiled a new quantum computing chip they've named Willow. The company says it will perform infinitely faster and better than any existing classical binary supercomputers of today. The Willow chip addresses two major problems with quantum computers. First, Google claims that Willow can reduce quantum computing or qubit errors exponentially. Quantum computers, remember, are more prone to errors than classical computers because they exist in such fragile states. They're trying to store those probability waves before they can be observed. It's just a crazy sounding a technology. And researchers believe that these new quantum computers will need more qubits to grow even more powerful, to be able to process even more information. But adding more qubits also means adding more errors. Or it used to. Google says they have solved this issue. As quoted in their press release for the new chip, Google says, the more qubits we use in our new Willow chip, the more we reduce such errors, and the more quantum the system actually becomes. They go on to say, we tested ever larger arrays of physical qubits, scaling up from a grid of 3 by 3 encoded qubits to a grid of 5 by 5 to a grid of 7 by 7, and each time using our latest advances in quantum error correction, we were able to cut the error rate in half. In other words, we achieved an exponential reduction in the quantum error rate. Google has been working on a quantum chip like this for about the past decade. This is cutting-edge engineering. This is the future, folks. We are in uncharted scientific territory now. They say the quantum chip is so fast that it can complete a computation in less than 5 minutes that would take a typical leading supercomputer of today over 10 septillion years to complete, which is technically older than the universe itself. Google says in regards to the chip's speed, quote, it lends credence to the notion that quantum processing occurs in many parallel universes and in line with the idea that we live in a multiverse, end quote. That's crazy. That's yeah. Most physicists believe that quantum chips like Willow will completely upend fields such as cryptography, space exploration, robotics, by solving complex problems that would take classical computers millions and millions of years to complete. As an example, a sufficiently advanced quantum computer could perform more calculations per second than there are atoms in our universe, and there are more atoms in just a glass of water than there are grains of sand on Earth. Quantum computers are incredibly powerful and could be incredibly disruptive. Classical cryptography uses what's known as crypto keys, which are like numerical passwords to protect and or retrieve information. These keys are derived by the factoring of large numbers. Factoring is a mathematical process used to find two numbers that you can multiply together to get a particular solution or another number. For example, if you took a a number like 1,646,767, divided it by 35,001, you would get 47.04. Those two numbers could be like your crypto keys, two numbers that you can use to multiply to get another certain number. I'm using much smaller, different kinds of numbers than normal, but just to use as an example here. For some reason that I'm not smart enough to explain, binary classical computers like today's modern computers have a very, very hard time factoring numbers. And that's how cryptography and crypto keys work. But quantum computers, with the power of qubits, can easily decipher crypto keys and those sorts of passwords. But not to worry, in the future, they're just going to come out with new sorts of quantum cryptography and quantum communications that will make things secure again. I mean, yeah, quantum computers are going to be a big deal here pretty soon for society, for the entire world. And coupled with AI, with new sorts of weapons that could be developed by terrorist groups or rogue nations, it's just sort of the future, like I guess with any new technology, is full of potential, but also some really scary aspects to it. And as they become more powerful, some modern day philosophers now even refer to advanced quantum computers, sort of the computers that are to come in the next few years, as God machines, as they believe, as does Google according to that press release, that quantum computers process their qubits through parallel universes. And modern day philosophers believe a quantum AI could exist as a hyper-intelligent consciousness that computes and operates outside of our own universe or time stream or even plane of existence, leading such quantum devices to answer questions for us before we even think to ask them. I mean, it would just totally rewrite our ideas of existence. I think Google's new quantum chip that they're calling Willow is the culmination of thousands of years of humans' philosophy, physics, math, science fiction, computer science, that when coupled with this newly emerging fields of AI, machine brain interfaces like Neuralink, are going to reshape humanity in ways that we can't even imagine yet. Pretty heavy stuff, but also pretty awesome. And speaking of awesome, it's War of the Worlds 2. The Empire Strikes Back. UFOs are invading New Jersey and the world. Part 2 of the show this week, and closing things out, is, as you guessed it, the UFO mystery drone news pouring out of New Jersey, and now out of New York as well. In New Jersey, residents have reported dozens of unidentified drone sightings over the past week. These drones have been spotted near sensitive military installations and even Trump's golf course in Bedminster. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has assured the public while that these sightings may be frustrating or frightening, they do not currently pose a known threat to public safety. Although I think this is funny, the governor then left the state with his family to go on vacation. Seems like kind of weird timing there. Also, New Jersey State Senator today did request a limited state of emergency be declared, which would lead to the immediate grounding of all civilian drones in the area. The senator also then relayed a story that he was told by the Coast Guard that recently a swarm of 30 to 50 of these unidentified objects were seen following a ship recently as it left out to sea. The FBI has responded today in a hearing on the matter in Capitol Hill in D.C. that they're actively investigating and following these incidents and have asked for the public's help in identifying these drones and their potential operators, as the sightings have now crept into New York State and were most recently reported over New York City and Brooklyn. Extraordinary, I think, eyewitness footage. You can see large car size objects with lights on them, but it's hard to tell exactly what they are. There's a ton of eyewitness accounts being uploaded to TikTok. Definitely, if you're into this stuff, go on there and check it out. It's fascinating. As the government investigations continue, the FBI is urging residents to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity. These mystery drones and their purpose remains unsolved, but personally, I think everyone knows that it's aliens. And what is fascinating to me about these drones, or whatever you want to call them, is that they're literally even faster than our fighter jets. There's tons of footage online of these drones hovering, fighter jets approaching, and the drones speeding off. Like, how are these drones faster than fighter jets? I just think that's crazy. And today, during the daily press briefing at the White House, the press secretary said that President Biden is aware of the mystery drone situation, the Department of Homeland Security, and that the U.S. military are actively investigating. Pretty crazy stuff. Meanwhile, in Japan, lawmakers there have launched an investigation of their own most recent UFO sightings. And following a U.S. Pentagon report by AARO, that's the Aerial Anomaly Resolution Office, a military group who deals with UFOs for the Pentagon, and who recently designated the country of Japan as a hotspot for UFO activity. As a result of this report, the Japanese parliament is now urging their own defense and space industries to boost their ability to detect and analyze unknown craft, which they indicate could be some sort of off-world drone technology or other technologies of unknown origin. These are just the most fascinating times to be into UFOs or science ever. So cool. And that's it for the show this week. Thank you so much. I know that was really in-depth on quantum computers, so if there's anyone that made it through that, you're a trooper. Thank you. I'll be back next week with more science and UFO news. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can subscribe to the show anywhere, everywhere. I'm all over the place. I'm on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Area 51. Follow me on all the social medias. There are a lot